Hi again, welcome to Whisky-ing. It's Richard here, despite the new glasses, still Richard, still guy talking about Canadian whiskey. Still got a Canadian whiskey for you right now, and a little bit of a story about what is going on with single malts, and maybe a tip to save you a little bit of money, because I'm all about having more whiskey for your buck. So what I've got today, though, to kind of frame the conversation, Eau Claire Distillery of Turner Valley, Alberta. This is their single malt, batch 4. It's at 43% for the whiskey nerds out there. In terms of aging, I am not 100% sure what this was aged in. It is 100% Alberta barley. So we are talking about a Scotch-style single malt. Barley is that little bit sweeter grain that's 100% used in Scotch. No mixes here. This is single malt. So before we get into why that might be costing you more than it should, let's take a little nose of this. Now, first thing is, this is definitely a whiskey that's on the delicate side. It's a lighter amber color. As I'm rolling around the glass, if you really want to look sophisticated, you ought to do. All I'm looking for is like how it flows. Like, am I looking like I poured a glass of water? Does it look like there's a little bit of a syrup quality to it? This is definitely on the light side, very swishy in the glass. Now on the nose here, I'm getting like chocolate cookie. I'm getting maybe a gingerbread cookie. There's a desserty sweetness about this. I get a bit of green, a little bit of grass, a little bit of freshness, maybe some herbs. And I know from reading up on the bottle, this is a fairly young whiskey, so that might be a little if you have a new make whiskey, like straight out the still, it can have a little bit of a berry taste to it, like especially barley can. So it might have a little bit of that quality here, but yeah, chocolate cookie really riding up on the nose here. And it smells rather nice. Now, before I taste it though, so what's the deal with single malt? So for those of you who aren't into whiskey a ton yet, single malt means that it comes from a single kind of grain, right? So you can malt whiskey or you can make whiskey from a ton of things: corn, rye, barley, rice, like any kind of grain that's got some sugar in it, some starches that can be made into sugar, that can be turned into alcohol. You can make whiskey from it. So when we talk about single malts, though, usually we're talking about Scotch whiskey, usually we're talking about barley, and usually we're talking about big dollars. When it comes to Scotch whiskey, it is well settled now that even though blends are technically the best selling in the world, when you get premium, you want the advertising, the marketing, and blessed distillers, especially in Scotland, they do so much storytelling. The story is single malt. There's a sense of purity about it. Oh, it's just the finest, the single best malt. Part of the reason I love Canadian whiskey is we ditch that. So there are single malts absolutely coming from Canada, and that's 100% rye is a single malt. But there's something great about Canadian whiskey that we don't mind blending it, right? We don't mind throwing a little bit of rye. In fact, up until Northern Harvest rye from Crown Royal came out, people just thought rye was just rye, right? And people called Crown Royal rye whiskey. That's only partly rye, small part, right? But that's fine because rye adds a little bit of spice, but barley adds a little bit of sweetness. Mix the two together, you get a little bit of sweet and spicy. That's a great combination for anyone who eats barbecue, for instance, right? So blends, especially in Canada, are not a bad thing, right? It's just like aging in different kinds of barrels. You can mix different kinds of grains to get different effects. And it's fine to have a single malt. My only beef is that they're going to probably charge you more for it because of the premium label associated with it. A bit of a spoiler, this is not my favorite whiskey around. I did spend good coin on this. It was a celebration bottle where selling our house. We're moving elsewhere, so you're going to have a new background for these soon. How exciting. But you're going to pay a premium for a single malt, and I don't think that premium is always worth it. So to see why, let's taste this. So like I said, chocolate cookie, a little bit of grassiness on the nose. Even Saskatoon berries, I've been picking up some of those lately. It's that time of year. See, and this is where I'm getting still that cocoa. Now it's becoming dark chocolate on the tongue, followed up with that same kind of bitterness. That part is interesting. It's nice. But overall, you can tell this is a young whiskey. It's got a spice to it. A dryness that just is a little bit, at first, overwhelming. As soon as you bring it on your tongue, you're getting that spice. And it's not like nice rye spice where it's a little bit peppery. It's just like, it's just got that little bit of burn, right? A little bit of a young whiskey kind of taste to it. Now, this one's been sitting out for a little bit, so some has evaporated off it. It's actually gotten a little bit better as it's been sitting. It's opened up a little bit. And when I say opened up, what it means is when I was first tasting it after I poured it, it was really burned. And then now I can get a little bit more of that chocolate back. So it's interesting, but for the price point, around $100, I've definitely had better Canadian whiskey. I'd price this lower. Sorry, Eau Claire. I know we're all looking to make our dollars here. But so it's not to say it's a bad whiskey, but I don't think it meets the price point. It loses a little bit, like on the nose, looking at it in the glass, you would think, delicate, some really low tone, interesting flavors. The spice of this, and honestly, the cocoa bitter chocolatiness, it just kind of hits you. So it comes off a little flat for me. Maybe it could benefit from having another booze or another grain mixed into it to add a little bit of intrigue. Maybe a different aging profile. This is pretty light, so a little bit longer aging. Maybe different fill barrels you could do. Look, I'm no master distiller, so I'm gonna just pull back here. I'm just an appreciator. I just wish this had a few more layers to it. Maybe that's just my taste. So feel free to give it a try. I know Eau Claire Distillery has pumped out some award winners in the past year or so. Their Rupert's whiskey has been winning awards. I'm not going to talk down to the distillery, but this edition maybe leaving a little bit flat, but that's okay. Live on anyways. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for learning a little bit about single malts, a little about this single malt. Keep an open mind next time you're in the whiskey aisle. Maybe look down a shelf. Sometimes you can find some real beauty offerings there. In the meantime, cheers, and we'll talk to you soon.